Do you want to learn effective ways to build relationships, generate sales, and grow your business from successful entrepreneurs, startups, and CEOs without listening to a long interview? If so, you've come to the right place. Gresham Harkless values your time and is ready to share with you precisely the information you're in search of. This is the IAM321 podcast.
Hello. This is Gresh from the IAM321 podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Jeff Cook of the Meet Group. Jeff, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
No problem. Super excited to have you on, and what I want to do is just read a little bit more about Jeff so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Jeff is a serial entrepreneur and public company CEO. He started his first company from a Harvard dorm and sold it for millions of dollars at the age of 24. He sold his second company for $100 million. He is currently the CEO and co-founder of the Meet Group, a social dating and live streaming company with a $400 million market cap. He has spent $200 million in the last 3 years buying 4 companies, including most recently Growler, a dating app for gay bears. Jeff also runs the leading podcast player Podcoin and can drive thousands of listening hours and hundreds of subscribers to podcasts on which he appears. Jeff is the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award winner for the Philadelphia region. He is also a children's book author and a mentor at Princeton University's Keller Center. He lives in Princeton, New Jersey with his wife, 2 daughters, and his son. Jeff, are you ready to speak to the IAM321 community?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Let's do it. So the first question I had was to hear a little bit more about what I call your CEO story and what led you to start your business.
Sure. So my CEO story begins as a sophomore in college. I was at Harvard and needed a side job. And rather than kind of go work at the library, which certainly I considered, it was in 1997. And I thought, you know what, let me see if I can create a website and make any money that way. I asked myself, well, what is it that I can do? And I thought I was a reasonably good writer and editor. So I put myself out there as an editor of documents and started this website and made about $10,000 my first year. It was a great side job. My next year, and this was all a student. My junior year, I was doing about 40K. Senior year, 300 plus K, and then would eventually grow that to millions of dollars of revenue before I sold that. My second company, which is the one I essentially still continue to run, even though I sold it back in 2011. It's now a public company, and I run that. But that was coming from, I was just coming off the first company, and I was looking for something to do. And social networking, I thought was going to be, $1 billion+ kind of market, and certainly had seen Friendster. MySpace was dominant at the time. Facebook was just coming to Harvard. And I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like, let's start something in this space. I worked with my brother and sister on it. And it was essentially started as my yearbook back in 2005. I did a couple rounds of venture capital. Grew it very, very quickly in terms of user base. Got to 1 million users in the first 9 months, and then sold it in November of 11. And it came back as CEO in the beginning of 2013, and ever since then I've been running it. It's now a public company called the Meet Group, traded on NASDAQ.
Nice. That's definitely awesome. It's great to hear always how little things kind of snowball into these big, huge companies. And obviously being a publicly traded company is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations to you for that. And I wanted to drill a little bit deeper and hear a little bit more about the Meet Group, what you guys are doing and how everything's structured, and kind of a little bit more about what I call your secret sauce.
Sure. So what we've been doing for the last few years really is building out our live streaming ability. So we looked at and continue to look at what is happening in China. And so we have Chinese speakers on staff who help us dissect what's going on there. And China is actually quite a bit more innovative than the United States when it comes to live streaming and video generally, and maybe even social generally. Maybe because the nature of the monopolies are a little different. Here you have Facebook that kind of just rules the roost with Instagram and so forth. And while there's very large players, there is a lot more competition among them. And so you see them spending billions of dollars on live streaming. And we thought, well, let's bring this model to the US and, give it, a Western interpretation. And so we're really among the first, I don't really know anybody else, who added dating, who blended kind of dating with live streaming video. And that's been going well for us. We're able to convert like 20+% of our users into live streamers, and that helps us extend our time with the user by 20+ minutes. And then we combine that. So that's like one part of the secret sauce, build out a live streaming engine that's inspired kind of by Asia. And then the second piece is then acquire other assets that live streaming engine might be successful on. And so we've acquired now 4 different companies in the last 3 years. Tag, an African American dating app; Growler, most recently, which is a gay dating app; Scout, this kind of more international meet new people community; and then Lavu, a European dating app. And so in each case, we acquired a pretty sizable community and then built out live streaming capabilities on top of it, growing revenue.
Nice. I love that perspective, because you're being able to kind of tap into like already built communities, and then you're able to add, kind of like I guess, build a better mousetrap on top of that in providing those live streaming capabilities to those apps.
Exactly, because what we found is that many of these companies that we bought, didn't want to or couldn't make the pretty sizable investment you need to make in order to build out live streaming video. Like, live streaming video is not something you put a team on or 2 teams on and wait 6 months and hope you have something. Like, it was an all-in company bet. Right now we have 17 of our 21 engineering teams working on live streaming in one capacity or another. Because it's more than just the streams. It's moderation, it's the AI and algorithms behind it, right? It's a whole, and live streaming just as a feature is just dramatically big, right? There's so many different aspects of it, from the engagement to the monetization. You could have one-on-one live streaming, multi-person. There's a lot going on there, and so if you're a kind of smaller company that might not be able to spend $20-30 million a year building out live streaming tech, then this acquisition might be a good way to enable it for your community.
Absolutely. So even for them, you're saying it has been a great opportunity because they're able to provide, additional service that they may not have been able to build in, and then they're still able to kind of continue potentially, servicing that community.
Exactly.
Nice. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this might be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
Yeah. I'd say one of the things that I think any probably CEO and probably many people just deal with is just constant interruption. And to some extent, that can't be avoided. But I think, a couple of things that I do to try to limit the interruption is, for one thing, email. If you can not have your email box open, all day, I think that's helpful. Or now Slack too, right? If there's something you want to get done, like, just turn off or close both Slack and email, and you'll probably just be more, instantly more effective. Right. On my phone, I've mostly been trying to turn off all notifications. So like, I don't want to be notified about anything by the phone, right? Like, so it's more like I have to be more intentional if I want to go into something. Just turning off push. And then within email, like if an email contains the word unsubscribe, I will never read it. So that's just another like quick hack to like filter out 40% of my email.
Yeah, it's funny because I think always a lot of people forget that a lot of these notifications and things, they're built to distract you. So they even tap into all this technology, psychology, I should say, to be able to distract you. So a lot of times you're trying to figure out why you're not as efficient as you could be. It's because they're tapping into sometimes parts of your brain or your psychology that you didn't even realize were enabled. Exactly.
And I think it's Tristan Harris who's got a pretty good critique about this sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that's right. Like, this is an interrupt, a lot of interrupt driven culture that we kind of live in. And it goes beyond just even push notifications, right? I mean, it goes all the way down to clickbait headlines, like things that are supposed to kind of get you for 30 seconds and then kind of outrage you or get you into the system to view a few more ad impressions.
Exactly. And then a lot of times, it takes you 30 minutes or so just to get back to the task at hand that you were doing. So I think that's a great CEO hack. And now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And this is a word of wisdom or piece of advice. Or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I think a useful piece of advice is to just never, lose sight of the big picture. Because I think at various moments in in kind of the journey, there'll be some issue that maybe, there's an issue with some operational concern, or revenue's not there, or maybe a layoff is needed. And the more you could just go back to asking yourself, like, how do you grow this thing? What is it that's going to get the users satisfied, that's going to bring in kind of more growth? And I think the CEO is in a unique capability to affect that, because I think almost everyone else in the organization can't look for growth as broadly as the CEO can, right? Everyone else in the organization is basically might be saying, how can I grow this little feature to be a
Right.
little bit better? Whereas the CEO could say something like, how do you add something entirely new that maybe no one in the audience is even, no one that you serve is even asking for?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I definitely appreciate and love that nugget. When you were saying that, the quote from, like, I think Henry Ford said, if I would have asked everybody what they wanted, they would have asked me to build a faster horse, instead of actual car. So a lot of
Exactly.
times you do have to have knowledge of everything that's going on, whether it's in your industry, in your country, wherever, and be able to kind of, like you said, adopt it in different places that sometimes don't fit, but you're so dialed into what your users want or the vision of where things are going that that that's a good bet. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Jeff, what does being a CEO mean to you?
To me, it really means to be a product leader, because I think in mobile social, which is the industry I play in, kind of all the kind of most successful CEOs are kind of also product visionaries, right? Like they're the ones kind of pushing the thing forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think to be successful as a mobile social app developer, like, you can't have your CEO be someone who's not also the product visionary, right? Like, you can't put a finance guy there, and unless that finance guy happens to be a product visionary.
Right.
So I think that's to me, and I think it's industry dependent, but to me it's product first, and last, really. And the product, of course, encompasses why the user's there to begin with. But a lot of this stuff around team building, all this stuff, that's important, but it's all part of a particular agenda, which is to create a product that users care about.
Exactly. Especially when that's the core part of your business, it's important to have that vision at one of the core, products and principles of why the business even exists itself. So I think that's a great definition. So Jeff, I truly appreciate your time. What I wanted to do was pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best people can find out about all the awesome things that you're doing and get in touch with you.
Sure. I mentioned the app Podcoin. I think it's an incented podcast listening platform. It pays you to listen to podcasts, and I think this is interesting, because basically we're blending this incented listening platform, and basically earn Starbucks cards and Amazon gift cards. We're blending that with social to try to solve that other problem of podcasting, which is, like, what should I listen to next?
Mm.
And kind of based on what your friends are listening to, or what potential influencers are listening to. So that's a project that's kind of just getting off the ground. We're only 6 months into this one, and kind of still in experimental mode. But some interesting stats. We're over 1.5 million listening minutes a day on this platform. A lot of listeners there, and more every week. So we're pretty excited about it.
Definitely. Well, we'll definitely have the link to that in the show notes as well. Is there any other best way or other projects that you're working on that you want us to follow on?
I mean, our dating apps, our live streaming apps are certainly interesting. Take a look if you want to understand the live streaming business that I'm talking about, at Meet Me, the app Meet Me. It's on iPhone or Android. That's probably the one to start with. And then we also have a podcast of our own called Stream Wars, that basically talks about the global live streaming industry, profiles live streamers, as well as interviews people at Twitch and other places. Pretty interesting.
Nice. Well, Jeff, I truly appreciate you. Appreciate all the awesome things you're doing. Of course, appreciate your time today. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the I Am CEO podcast powered by Blue 16 Media. Tune in next time and visit us at IAM321.co. I Am CEO is not just a phrase, it's a community. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. Grab CEO gear at www.ceogear.co. This has been the I Am CEO podcast with Gresham Harkless. Thank you for listening.